Welcome back, everyone, to Bible Unraveled. Today, we're diving into the life of one of the most significant and mysterious figures in all of Scripture, Isaiah. But rather than starting with his birth or even his early life, I want you to imagine a moment of profound change. The king is dead, and the nation is in turmoil. King Uzziah, who had ruled Judah for decades, had recently passed, and now the kingdom finds itself on uncertain ground. Power struggles are looming, enemies surround the borders, and the future looks anything but secure. This is the moment when Isaiah steps into the temple of the Lord, maybe seeking clarity, maybe desperate for answers. What he doesn't know is that his life is about to change forever. As he stands in the temple, the air begins to feel thick, the atmosphere around him electric with something otherworldly. Suddenly, Isaiah looks up and sees a vision that will mark him for life. The Lord, seated on a throne, high and exalted, the very essence of majesty and power. The train of his robe fills the temple, and surrounding him are mighty, fiery beings called seraphim, each with 6 wings. The seraphim are calling out to one another in voices so powerful that the temple itself shakes. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord Almighty. The whole earth is full of his glory. Isaiah is struck to the core. He is not overwhelmed by awe, but by terror. He knows in that moment that he is standing in the presence of a God so holy, so perfect, that his own unworthiness becomes crystal clear. He cries out, "Woe to me! I am ruined, for I am a man of unclean lips, and I live among a people of unclean lips, and my eyes have seen the King, the Lord Almighty." Isaiah, confronted with the purity of God's holiness, is completely undone by his own sinfulness and the sinfulness of his people. But instead of judgment, something remarkable happens. One of the seraphim flies over to Isaiah with a live coal in its hand. Taken from the altar, the seraph touches Isaiah's lips with the burning coal and says, "Your guilt is taken away, and your sin atoned for." In an instant, Isaiah is cleansed. The weight of his sin is lifted, and now he stands purified before God. Then, without hesitation, he hears a voice, God's voice, asking a question: "Whom shall I send, and who will go for us?" And Isaiah, having just been forgiven, doesn't hesitate. He replies, "Here am I, send me." It's a bold, immediate response, and from this moment on, Isaiah's life takes a new direction. He is no longer just a man seeking answers in a chaotic world. He becomes the messenger of God to an entire nation, the one called to deliver divine messages to kings and common people alike. Isaiah's mission, however, isn't going to be easy. Right from the start, God tells him something shocking. He says that the people of Judah won't listen to his words. Their hearts will be hardened, their eyes will be blind, and they won't turn from their sinful ways. Isaiah is given the difficult task of speaking truth to a people who will refuse to hear it. Can you imagine the weight of such a calling? To spend your entire life speaking God's words, knowing that most will reject them. To understand Isaiah's mission, we need to take a closer look at the world he lived in. Isaiah was a prophet during one of the most turbulent periods in Judah's history. He prophesied through the reigns of 4 kings, Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, each facing different challenges that threatened the survival of the nation. But it wasn't just political instability Isaiah had to contend with. Spiritually, the people of Judah had drifted far from God. They were caught up in idolatry, mixing the worship of God with the pagan practices of the surrounding nations. Justice was a foreign concept in many parts of society, and the wealthy and powerful were exploiting the poor with little concern for righteousness. Even the temple worship had become a hollow ritual for many. People would go through the motions, offering sacrifices and saying prayers, but their hearts were far from God. Isaiah had the tough job of calling the nation back to faithfulness, back to the kind of justice, mercy, and holiness that God had called them to. But Isaiah wasn't just delivering words, he was also living out prophetic signs. One of the most unusual things Isaiah ever did, and perhaps one of the most surprising stories in the Bible, is when he walked around naked and barefoot for 3 years. Yes, 3 years. In Isaiah 20, God commanded Isaiah to remove his clothes and sandals and walk naked and barefoot as a sign of what would happen to Egypt and Cush, modern-day Ethiopia. At the time, many people in Judah believed that Egypt and Cush could offer protection from the growing threat of the Assyrian Empire. Assyria was the superpower of the day, known for its brutality, and Judah was caught in the middle of a political storm. But Isaiah's nakedness was a symbol of the humiliation and defeat that Egypt and Cush would soon face at the hands of Assyria. His prophetic action was a stark warning to Judah that relying on foreign powers rather than on God would lead to disaster. Imagine the shock of seeing a respected prophet walking around naked for 3 years. This wasn't just a one-time event. This was a long-term, uncomfortable and publicly humiliating act. But Isaiah's obedience was unwavering. He didn't care about his reputation or the public scorn. He cared about delivering God's message in the most vivid, unforgettable way possible. The nakedness symbolized the futility of trusting in human alliances for security. God was saying through Isaiah, "Don't place your hope in Egypt or Cush. They will be led away captive and naked, and so will you if you continue to trust in them." Isaiah's nakedness was a physical embodiment of what happens when we place our trust in worldly powers rather than in God. Isaiah's relationship with the kings of Judah was often complex, especially with King Ahaz, who consistently ignored Isaiah's calls to trust in God. But one of the most dramatic moments in Isaiah's life came during the reign of Hezekiah, Ahaz's son, who was a much more faithful king. By the time Hezekiah took the throne, Judah was under constant threat from the Assyrian Empire. In 701 BC, the Assyrian king Sennacherib marched through Judah, laying siege to its cities. Jerusalem itself was surrounded, and it looked like the city was about to fall. Hezekiah did everything he could to strengthen the city's defenses, but he knew that Judah's military strength wasn't enough to save them. In desperation, Hezekiah turned to Isaiah for guidance. Isaiah's message was clear and direct. "Do not be afraid of what you have heard." Despite the overwhelming force of the Assyrian army, Isaiah prophesied that God would deliver Jerusalem, and in one of the most miraculous turnarounds in the Bible, that's exactly what happened. The Bible tells us in Isaiah 37:36 that an angel of the Lord went out and struck down 185,000 Assyrian soldiers in one night. The next morning, when the Assyrians woke up, their army was decimated. Sennacherib was forced to retreat, and Jerusalem was saved, not by its own strength, but by the direct intervention of God. This event isn't just a powerful story of divine deliverance. It encapsulates Isaiah's entire message to Judah: trust in God alone. Time and again, Isaiah warned the people that relying on military alliances, foreign powers, or their own strength would lead to failure. The only real security came from trusting in God's power to protect and provide. But Isaiah's vision didn't just stop with the immediate political crises of his day. He saw far beyond his own time and place. Some of the most powerful and lasting prophecies in the Bible come from Isaiah, prophecies that point not just to Judah's future, but to the future of all humanity. One of the most famous of these is the prophecy of the suffering servant in Isaiah 52 and 53. In these chapters, Isaiah describes a figure who would be despised and rejected by men, a man of sorrows who would take upon himself the sins of the people. He was pierced for our transgressions, he was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was on him, and by his wounds we are healed. This suffering servant, Christians believe, is a direct prophecy about Jesus Christ, centuries before his birth. Isaiah was given a glimpse into God's ultimate plan for redemption, a plan that involved not just kings and kingdoms, but the salvation of the world. And then there's Isaiah's vision of the new creation. In Isaiah 65, he speaks of a day when God will create a new heaven and a new earth, a place where the wolf and the lamb will feed together, and they will neither harm nor destroy on all my holy mountain. It's a breathtaking vision of peace and restoration, a world free from suffering, death, and war. Isaiah saw the end of history, the moment when God's kingdom would be fully established and all of creation would be redeemed. This wasn't just wishful thinking, it was a divine promise, and it's a promise that still gives hope today. Isaiah's life was marked by moments of profound faith, radical obedience, and incredible vision. He walked naked for 3 years, warning the people of what would happen if they trusted in foreign powers instead of God. He stood beside kings, offering them guidance and calling them to trust in divine protection. He saw visions of a future far beyond his own time, a future where the Messiah would come, suffer, and ultimately redeem the world. Isaiah's message is as relevant now as it was in his time. His story reminds us that true security and hope are found not in human strength or alliances, but in trusting God. His prophecies continue to inspire, challenging us to look beyond our present circumstances and trust in God's ultimate plan for redemption. Thank you for joining me today on Bible Unraveled. Don't forget to like and subscribe, please. I hope Isaiah's story has inspired you as much as it has inspired me. His life is a reminder that even when the world around us seems chaotic or hopeless, God is always at work, bringing his purposes to pass in ways we can't always see. Until next time, stay curious, keep seeking, and remember that God's plans are always unfolding, even in the most unexpected ways.